लक्ष्मीनाथ समारंभां नाथयामुन मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यं वाकेष्वनुवाकेषु निषत्सु उपनिषत्सु च गृह्णन्ति सत्यकर्माणं सत्यं सत्येषु सामसु. This shloka is present in the Mahabharata in the Shanti Parva. This verse states that all the Vedas talk about Bhagavan Sriman Narayana. The Vedas are divided into several sections here. This verse says Vaka, Anuvaka, Sama, Nishat and Upanishad all talk about Bhagavan Sriman Narayana. What are these portions? The word Vaka refers to all the mantras that we utter when we do Vedic deeds. Next, the word Anuvaka refers to the commands in the Vedas that instruct us to do such a deed or not to do any deed. For example, the Vedas may say one who wishes to attain Swarga should do Jyotishtoma Yajna. This is a command from the Vedas. Similarly, the Vedas may say you should not partake some food items. This is a negation from the Vedas. So these are referred to as Anuvaka. Vaka means mantras, Anuvaka means commands, and Sama means the singing portions, the tune portions of the Vedas. These three talk about Brahman. The next two portions are what are of interest to us, Nishat and Upanishad. The word Nishat means those Vedic passages that talk about Brahman but indirectly. That is, they may talk about Indra, about Varuna, about Agni, about Kubera and other such deities, but in truth their intent is to talk about Bhagavan. The last portion called Upanishad do not talk about any other deities. They directly talk about the glory of Sriman Narayana. So Nishad just means that portion which refers to or talks about Brahman but indirectly. Upanishad means that Vedic passage which directly talks about Brahman. This meaning is found from the very word Upanishad. Upa means close by. Nishat means sitting down. So these passages called Upanishad are very close to Brahman. That is, they directly talk about the glories and the activities of Brahman. They do not have any intermediary. The Nishat that was talked about earlier talk about Indra and then say Bhagavan is the controller of Indra. It says Agni does this, but Bhagavan is the controller of Agni. This is what is meant by talking about Brahman indirectly. Upanishads do not talk about Brahman indirectly. They directly say Brahman is the one who creates this world. He sustains this world. We should attain Brahman, and that is called liberation or mukti. So this is how Upanishad directly talks about Brahman. That is why it has the name Upanishad. Another name for this passage is Vedanta. We have all heard this word. Anta means conclusion. Vedanta means the conclusion of the Vedas. Now this has two meanings. Conclusion could mean that it is the last part of the Vedas. So there is a big text. It has some 10 chapters. The last chapter would be the conclusion in so much that it is at the end of the text. So conclusion, Vedanta could mean the last portion of the Vedas. The second meaning of the word conclusion is that it is the removal of all doubts and arriving at a firm belief. So Vedas have a conclusion. That is, the meaning of the Vedas is concluded in this passage. That is why the Upanishads are called the Vedantas. By reading the whole Vedas, you cannot arrive at a conclusion. You need to study the Vedantas in order to conclude what the final purport of the Vedas are. Therefore, the Upanishads are also known as Vedantas. This verse now says Vaka, Anuvaka, Sama, Nishat and Upanishad all talk about Brahman Satyakarmanam, Grinanti Satyakarmanam, Satyam Satyeshu Samasu. Brahman is called Satya. He is never changing. He is the one supreme truth. Then he is Satyakarma. All his activities are true. He creates this world. He sustains this world. He destroys this world. He performs many Leela activities. He takes avatars as Rama, Krishna, etc. All these karmas of Bhagavan are all true. So he is called Satyakarma. So this verse in the Mahabharata says mantras, brahmanas, sama, nishat and Upanishad all talk about Brahman. Now the final portion of this Veda, the concluding portion is called the Upanishad. That is the portion that is also called as Vedanta. This Vedanta is what is of interest to us. We in this world have been born here for any reason it may be, but we are looking for salvation. We see that this world is filled with sorrow, and even if there is a little happiness, it is quickly followed by sorrow. Therefore, we wish to go to a land where there is only bliss and no sorrow. The Upanishads say that the only way to do this is to get rid of this samsara and attain liberation or mukti. The Upanishads talk about the means by which we can attain liberation. However, these Upanishads cannot be understood directly. We have limited knowledge, limited time and limited power to study the whole Upanishads. Therefore, we need some texts that can elucidate the meaning of the Upanishads and explain to us in a language that we can understand in. These texts are called Upabrahmanams. An Upabrahmanam is a work of a great rishi or a seer who has understood the meaning of the Vedas and written this text so that people who come in the future can read it and bolster their understanding of Brahman. We need not depend on Upabrahmanams completely. We can read the Upanishads and form an initial idea, but to reach a conclusion, to reach a firm belief, we would need these Upabrahmanams that elucidate the meaning. These Upabrahmanams for the Vedanta are the Itihasas and Puranas. Itihasas are two, Ramayana and Mahabharata. Puranas are 18 in number. All these together explain the meaning of the Vedanta or Upanishads. Among these Upabrahmanams, Mahabharata has a supreme portion called Bhagavad Gita. This Bhagavad Gita was told by Lord Krishna himself and hence is a very authentic source. When we want to understand the meaning of the Vedas and Vedantas, who other can we rely on than Lord Krishna himself? Therefore, Bhagavad Gita, which explains the meaning of the Upanishads, is one Upabrahmanam that is trusted by all. Let it be any philosophy, be Advaita, Vishishtadvaita or Dvaita, all philosophers explain the meaning of Gita also. Next, Brahma Sutras that were written by Vedavyasa are also considered an authentic source of knowledge. So, one Upanishad, to explain that Upanishad, we have two major texts. One is the Brahma Sutras, the other is the Bhagavad Gita. Both of these explain the meaning of the Upanishads. Let us see how. When we talk about the Brahma Sutra, there is a shloka in Sri Ramanuja's Sri Bhashyam. Parasharya Vachasudham Upanishad Dugdhabdi Madhyodhritam Samsaragni Vidipana Vyapagata Pranatma Sanjeevanim. In this shloka, the first verse is what we require right now. Parasharya Vachasudha. Parasharya means sage Vedavyasa. Parashara Maharshi was the one who wrote Vishnu Purana. His son is Parasharya, who is Vedavyasa. Parasharya Vachasudha. Parasharya or Vedavyasa wrote the Brahma Sutrams. That is the nectar that came from the mouth of Vedavyasa. Parasharya Vachasudham Upanishad Dugdhabdi Madhyodhritam. Imagine that the Upanishads are an ocean of milk. If you churn that ocean of milk, what will you get? You should get some Amrita. The Devas and Asuras churned the milk ocean and got the ambrosia which gives no death. It puts an end to death. Like that, suppose you imagine that all the Upanishads are an ocean of milk and you churn that. What would you get? Upanishad Dugdabdhi Madhyodhritam. This Brahma Sutra is the ambrosia that you get from the Upanishads. The normal ocean of milk, when churned, will give you ambrosia which the Devas partook. This ocean of milk called the Upanishads will give you Brahma Sutras. So you know that Brahma Sutras are the essence, they are the purport of the Upanishads. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita is also from the Upanishads. Sarvopanishado Gavaha Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha Partho Vatsaha Sudhihi Bhokta Dugdham Gita Amritam Mahat. This is a very popular shloka. What Sri Krishna did is, he converted all the Upanishads into cows. He was a cowherd, so the thing he knew best was to milk cows. What he did was, he kept all the Upanishads in the place of a cow. Then, Sarvopanishado Gavaha, all the Upanishads have now become cows. Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha, Krishna himself is the cowherd who is going to milk that cow. Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha, Partho Vatsaha, there needs to be a calf who is going to partake that milk. There should first be a calf, the milk should be drunk by the calf, then what is left over can be taken for usage by humans. Similarly, the Upanishads are now a cow. Shri Krishna is going to milk that cow. That milk which comes, the essence of the Upanishads, is going to be Shri Bhagavad Gita. The calf who first drank that milk is Arjuna. Partho Vatsaha Sudhihi Bhokta. But the milk is not for Arjuna alone. It is for anyone who wants to know the supreme truth. Sudhihi, one who has a pure mind, who has a clear mind, is the one who is going to understand Sri Bhagavad Gita, who is going to benefit from Sri Bhagavad Gita. Sudhihi Bhokta Dugdham Gita Amritam Mahat. So, when you first make the Upanishads as an ocean of milk, and when you churn it, you get Brahma Sutrams. Similarly, when Krishna made the Upanishads as a cow and milked that cow, he got Bhagavad Gita and gave it to us. So both these Upabrahmanams, if you take Brahma Sutram or Sri Bhagavad Gita, both of these emanate from the Upanishads. They do not give a new meaning that is unheard of in the Upanishads. They explain the Upanishads. They are an Upabrahmanam to the Upanishad. Therefore, there are now three texts. The Upanishads, which are the main source of knowledge, then Brahma Sutras written by Vedavyasa, which explain the meaning of the Upanishads, then Sri Bhagavad Gita, given by Lord Krishna himself, who elucidates the meaning of the Upanishads. These three texts together are known as three prasthanams: Sutra Prasthanam, Upanishad Prasthanam, Gita Prasthanam. Prasthanam means a place where you enter a river. There is a fleet of steps through which you enter a river. Similarly, when you want to understand Brahman, there are three fleets of steps you can follow. One is the Upanishad Prasthana. You read the Upanishads and through them understand Brahman. The second one is Sutra Prasthana. You read the Brahma Sutras of Vedavyasa and through them understand the Upanishads and Brahman. Similarly, the third one is called Gita Prasthana. You understand Bhagavad Gita, you start practicing the values that God told us in Bhagavad Gita, and eventually you will understand Brahman himself. So these three are the primary prasthanams that any philosopher would explain. You can take Sri Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada or Sri Ramanujacharya or Madhvacharya. All of them have written commentaries, written texts that give the meaning of the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutrams and Sri Bhagavad Gita. For example, if you take Sri Ramanujacharya, the text called Sri Bhashyam is a Bhashyam, a commentary on the Brahma Sutrams of Vedavyasa. Next, he wrote Gita Bhashyam to explain the meanings of Bhagavad Gita. Then, to explain the meaning of the Upanishads, he did not write a commentary elaborately for all the Upanishads. Instead, he gave a text called Vedartha Sangraha, in which he explains the meaning of important verses. There are some verses of contention between different philosophers. He takes those important verses that are crucial to Vishishtadvaita Siddhanta and explains their meaning. So, in effect, he has written a commentary for Upanishads also. So, the first one is Sutra Prasthana, then Upanishad Prasthana, then Gita Prasthana. These three are considered as the highest sources of knowledge. That is why they are called as Prasthana Trayi. Now, we too are going to study these three Prasthanams, but not fully. We in these 3 days will consider three main concepts. The first one is equality. The second one is karma. The third one is jnana and bhakti. All these three concepts are explained in all three prasthanams. It is not that Upanishads talk about equality alone but do not talk about jnana and bhakti. It is not like Bhagavad Gita does not talk about equality at all. All prasthanams talk about all these topics, but we are going to choose one prasthanam and study each concept from that prasthana. Equality we will see from the Upanishads. Similarly, today will be equality from the Upanishads. Tomorrow we will see how karma is accumulated by us and how we can get rid of it as told in the Brahma Sutrams. The Sutra Prasthana will be read tomorrow, and from that we will understand about karma and how to get rid of it. Day after tomorrow, from the Gita, we will understand what jnana and bhakti are. When we follow one prasthanam, we cannot read that alone or in isolation. When we read about Upanishads, we will keep Brahma Sutrams and Gita as ancillary sources. We will support our understanding using those two. Similarly, when we read the Bhagavad Gita, we will see verses from the Upanishads and passages from the Brahma Sutrams which will explain Gita also. So, these three prasthanams are always interlinked. They talk about the same purpose, about the same concepts. We will take three concepts and study one from each prasthana. Our topic for today is equality in the Upanishads. If you see in this world, we mostly look at differences between people. From the time a child is born, it is differentiated based on weight, based on height, based on color, based on its skin, and many other such things. Similarly, when we grow up, we are differentiated based on our activities, based on our habits, based on our intellect, and based on how well we can learn skills. Even when you go to a job interview, you are asked how you are unique or how you can offer something that no one else can't. Similarly, even a company is expected to have a unique selling proposition, something that no other company can provide. So, everything in this world is based on differentiating yourself from others, showing that you are unique and not similar to others. But the Upanishads do not look in this way. As far as the Upanishads are concerned, everyone is equal. It does not look at the individuality of people, it looks at the similarities between people. Not even people, it considers all entities as equal. So, the first thing that we should understand is how do these Upanishads tell us that everyone is equal. When I say everyone, we should first make a distinction. There are some of us who are called Jivatmas. We are Atmas, souls who are still in this material world, in this samsara. We are called Jivatma. There are some who have attained liberation from here. They are also Jivatma, but they are referred to as Mukta. Mukti means liberation. Mukta is one who has attained liberation. So, Paramatma is Lord Sriman Narayana, the Supreme Being, Brahman. Everyone other than Paramatma, all sentient entities other than Paramatma are known as Jivatma. So, there are two categories. When I say Atma, there is one Jivatma and one Paramatma. These are the two categories. Vedas say that all Jivatmas are equal. Similarly, all Jivatmas are similar to Bhagavan also. It is not that Vedas talk about the equality among Jivatmas. They also talk about equality between Paramatma and Jivatma. We will see how. To understand how the Upanishads say that all Atmas are equal, we should first understand what an Atma is. The Atma is what is referred to by the word I. When I say I see this object or I do this activity, the word I refers to not this body but something else other than the body. This is because I many a time say this is my body. I don't say I am this body, I say this is my body. Therefore, I am someone who is distinct from this body. That I is known as the Atma. This Atma is of two types, Jivatma and Paramatma. However, all Atmas are explained by a common rule. The Upanishad Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Yatha Saindhava Ganaha Anantaraha Abahyaha Kritsnaha Rasagana Eva Evam va Are Ayam Atma Anantaraha Abahyaha Kritsnaha Vijnana Ghana Eva. What this means is, when you take a rock of salt, whether you check the inside or the outside, it is also always going to have a salty taste. It is going to be a saline taste. Similarly, when you take an Atma, that Atma is completely made of knowledge. We have something called knowledge, conscience. So, Atma himself is conscience. This is what the Upanishads say about us. Next, they also add one quality. It is not that the Atma is conscience himself, he also possesses knowledge. So, there is one entity of knowledge which is called the Atma. That entity cognizes itself. When I say I, that is the knowledge that is called Atma. Next, when I say I cognize a pot or I see this book, then what I mean is I have knowledge, I possess knowledge using which I am able to see this book, I am able to see some pot. So, there is an Atma who is made of knowledge and who also possesses knowledge. So, there are two knowledge entities. Suppose there is a flame, a lamp. There is one part called a flame and then there is light all around it. That light is also a dravyam. This flame is a dravyam, a substance, and this flame also gives birth to the light that is around it. That is called Prabha. So, Deepam refers to a flame and Prabha is the light that has extended throughout this room. Now, can this Prabha exist without a Deepa? When you extinguish a flame, the light around is also destroyed. Similarly, there are two entities of knowledge. One is the base called the Atma. The Atma himself is made of knowledge. Then the Atma also possesses knowledge. That knowledge is called Dharmabhuta Jnana. So, when I say I see a pot, actually there are two knowledge entities there. The part which says I is actually the entity called Atma. Then when I say see a pot or see a book, then what I mean is I, the Atman, through my Dharmabhuta Jnana, the knowledge that I possess, have grasped this book, have grasped this pot. Therefore, this Atma is completely made of knowledge. This is what is referred to as Jnanaika Akara. This Atma is completely made of knowledge. He is not made of flesh. He is not made of the Panchabhutas, fire, water, etc. He is just an entity made of knowledge. This quality is common to all Atmas. It is not that I am made of knowledge and some other Atma is made of flesh. All Atmas, evam va are ayam Atma anantaraha abahyaha kritsnaha vijnana ghana eva. Vijnana means knowledge. This Atma is knowledge personified. Suppose there is a ball of knowledge. You can call that as an Atma. It is a minute ball. It is a microscopic ball. So, it is called Anu. The size of an Atman is described as Anu. Therefore, Atma himself is made of knowledge and Atma also possesses knowledge. This is common to all Atmas. There is no difference if you view an Atma in this way. Similarly, when you say that the Atma is a pinda of knowledge, it automatically follows that it is different from this body. This body is not made of knowledge. My mind or manas is not made of knowledge. My prana, the vayu that I inhale and exhale, the air that I inhale and exhale, is also not made of knowledge. So we can know that I, the Atma, am different from this body, I am different from this prana, I am different from this manas, etc. Sri Alavandar, in his text called Atma Siddhi, says, Dehendriya manahprana dibhyonyaha ananya sadhanaha. Deham, Indriyam, Manas, Pranan, knowledge. All these five are not the Atma. Atma is one who is made of knowledge and who also possesses this knowledge. Suppose we start seeing everyone in this way. I see Ravana, I see Rama. Or I see Ravana, I see Vibhishana. There is no difference between them. Vibhishana also is an Atma who is made of knowledge. Ravana also is an Atma who is made of knowledge. So there is no way to see any difference between them. When I start to understand that everyone is similar, everyone is just made of knowledge, then there is no difference between them. Only when I associate them with a body can I find out differences between them. When talking about this, the Shvetashvatara Upanishad says, Naiva stri na pumanesha nachayvayam napumsakaha yadyat shariram adatte tena tena sayujyate. What this means is, our Atma by itself is not masculine, it is not feminine, it is not that which a neuter gender also. When an Atma takes up a body, it is associated with all of these. The Atma as such has no color, but when it takes up the body of an elephant, it is said this is a black elephant. In fact, blackness is not in the Atman, it is there only in the body, but the Atman is associated with this black color. Similarly, take masculinity, it is not there in the Atman by nature. An Atman is said to be a Purusha when it takes the body of a male human being. Similarly, when it takes the body of a female human being, it is called as Stri. So, this Atma by nature cannot be differentiated as Puman, Stri, Napumsaka, etc. It cannot be said to be tall or short, fat or lean, or even light color, pale in color or dark in color. What you can say about the Atman is, it is made of Jnanam, it is made of knowledge. There is no other difference. If you start looking at this way, then you cannot see any difference between Atmans. Wherever you see, may it be friend or foe, you can only consider them as a ball of knowledge. They are just made of knowledge. Only when you see all these associated body and everything else, you can see differences between them. This is explained in the Vishnu Purana. Yadyanyosti parahkopi mattaf parthiva sattama tada yeshoham ayam chanyaha iti ishyate. In Vishnu Purana, Parashara says, if another Atman is of a different nature than my nature, then I can say, I am this person, he is a different person. Ayam yeshaha, tada yeshoham, ayam cha anyaha. If I am made of knowledge and some other Atma is not made of knowledge, then I can say, I am of this nature, that person is different. But what Parashara says is, Yedi anyosti parahkopi mattaha parthiva sattama. O king, if another Atman was not made of knowledge but had some other nature, then I could have said, I am different and he is different. But since all Atmans are made of knowledge alone, I am not able to differentiate between them, saying, I am knowledge and he is not knowledge, or I am fat and he is lean. All these differences do not apply to the Atman. They are just with the body, they rest with the body. Therefore, we should first learn that this Atman is made of knowledge alone. He is not this body, he is not fat or lean, he is not tall or short. All you can say is, Atma is made of knowledge. So this is the first equality that we should understand. When talking about this, Krishna says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shunichaiva Shvapakecha Panditaha Samadarshinaha. He talks about equality in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Samadarshinaha, people who see equality. What do? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shunichaiva Shvapakecha Panditaha Samadarshinaha. Panda means knowledge. Pandita means one who has knowledge, one who has understood the true nature of the Jivatman. One such person, a Pandita, what does he do? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shunichaiva Shvapakecha Samadarshinaha. He sees, he views everything as equal. Shunichaiva Shvapakecha. Gavi Hastini. Go refers to a cow. Hasti refers to an elephant. So whether he sees a small animal like a cow or if he sees a large animal like an elephant, he sees no difference. This means he does not differentiate based on the size of the body. He only says that all Atmans, the Atman residing within this cow and the Atman residing within this elephant, are both made of knowledge. So there is no way to differentiate between them. This body has been taken up by that Atman due to some past karma, due to some virtue or some papa that it has done. Suppose you remove all these frills. All these are frills, they are not natural to the Jivatman. It is only attached because he is in this samsara. Suppose you view the original Jivatman, the Jivatman who is devoid of all this body and other things that came because of samsara. What can you say? This is knowledge. This Atman is knowledge. You cannot say that this is a cow, this is an elephant. You cannot say this is small, that is large. You can only say this is knowledge, that is also knowledge. So between a cow and an elephant, based on the size of the body, he sees no difference. Gavi Hastini Samadarshi. Similarly, Shunichaiva Shvapakecha. Be it a dog or someone who kills and eats a dog. You can take any animal for that matter. An animal that is being killed and the person who kills and eats that animal, both are the same, because this animal is actually a Jivatma that resides within that body, that is made up of Jnanam alone. This hunter or the person who kills that animal is also an Atman that is made of Jnanam alone. So there is no way to differentiate between them. Based on size, between a cow and an elephant, you cannot differentiate. Between a dog that is being killed and a hunter who kills that dog, based on their activity, you cannot differentiate. Similarly, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane. Between someone who is well read, who is literate, who has studied all the Shastrams and has good discipline, between such a person and between a normal Brahmana who is just a Brahmana by birth but has not gotten any of these virtues like education or a good discipline, between these two also there is no way to see a difference. A normal Brahmana who is just a Brahmana by birth or one who has accumulated knowledge, accumulated any discipline, etc., there is no way to differentiate between them, because this person is also a Jivatma who is made of knowledge. The one who has amassed a lot of wealth or a lot of knowledge also is also a Jivatma that is just made of knowledge. There is no way to differentiate between them. So Panditaha, one who has seen the truth about the Atman, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shunichaiva Shvapakecha Samadarshinaha. What this person, what the scholar sees is, he only sees all Jivatmas as an entity made of knowledge. He does not differentiate between them. If you start doing this, then you will not have any friend or you will not have any foe. You can have an equal mind towards everyone. So this Samadarshanam is what is attained by Atma Sakshatkara. When Gita talks about Atma Sakshatkara, Shri Krishna says the one main indicator of Atma Sakshatkara is you will start seeing everything equally. A cow or an elephant, a dog or a hunter, a well-read person or an illiterate person, you can see all of them are as equals, because you know that they are all made of knowledge. Jnanaika akara. Their form is just knowledge. They are not any differentiated by their body, by their activities, by their education, by their discipline or anything else. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavi hastini shunichaiva shvapakecha panditaha samadarshinaha. Next he says, ihaiva tair jitas sargaha yesham samye sthitam manaha nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmani te sthitaha. Krishna says, one who has learnt to view everything as equal has become a mukta here itself. Ihaiva tair jitas sargaha. Iha, in this very materialistic world that we called as samsara, ihaiva taihi jitas sargaha. Creation or destruction has been won over by them. How can they win over samsara? Yesham samye sthitam manaha. Those whose mind rests firmly in this samya, in this equality of all souls, they have won over creation. How is it? Nirdosham hi samam brahma. The jivatma who has been detached from this body, detached from this samsara, is called Brahma.